What would it do for you and your family to make 6 figures in the next 12 months? How would that make you feel? But some remain vulnerable.
So what do they learn in the training?
There is a solution. Self-reliance is a core value of being an American. Once you learn how to make 6 figures listing luxury homes, your world changes. No boss, your own schedule. It's empowering.
12 sessions, 6 figures, 12 months. What would it do for you in your life? How would that make you feel?
Once you learn how to thrive on your own, life becomes a lot more fun.
Yeah!
Welcome back to the training, everybody. This is Scott Farrell, and this is week 9, lead generation. Before we get into the lead generation content, let's review our action list from last week, the art of negotiation. Our action list last week consisted of separating the people from the problem. That is a distinction that's really important to become a skilled negotiator. Number 2 was to identify interests as opposed to positions by fleshing them out. And 3 was inventing options before deciding your next move. I also highly recommend reading the book Getting to Yes. It's a fairly short book, but probably the single best book I've ever read on negotiation. So I highly recommend that book if you want to do some further reading. So this is week 9, lead generation. And we're going to discuss strategies for buyer and seller lead generation. Know that the best lead is a referral. That is why you should be building your powerful referral network on a daily basis. That's your top priority. And only when you're maximizing your network's potential and professionally pursuing free leads should you invest in new leads. By free leads, I mean for sale by owners in your farm or surrounding area and expired listings. Why? Because those homeowners have already raised their hand that they want to sell. We all know that there are many sources for buying internet leads. The conversion ratio of those leads is around 1%, or in some cases much less. In any event, you need to work a lot of leads to close an escrow. I'm not saying you shouldn't pursue those, but you should just know the metrics. Most importantly, you need to call an internet lead back within the first 5 minutes, or the chance of conversion falls off a cliff. Take a look at this graph. The green line is the first 5 minutes. 10 minutes into the response time, you can see the drastic drop. Then to 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and 30 minutes, etc. What this means is if you wait a half an hour to return an internet lead's call, the chance of converting them is almost zero. That's what we mean by if you don't call them back within 5 minutes or less, the conversion ratio falls to next to nothing. You need to be set up in your daily work to be able to respond immediately to internet leads that you purchase. Let's take a look at this seller lead conversion trend because its interpretation is very important. What this is showing us is that less than 5% of seller leads are ready to sell within 60 days, a very small percentage. But the graph starts to grow over time. We're looking at a period of 24 months. What this means is you have to nurture seller leads to get the listing and get their homes closed over a long period of time. This is a long-term prospect, but a very valuable one. But what's interesting here is take a look at where most agents quit following up. Most agents, if they don't get a positive reaction immediately, they give up. But the real pool of money here is for the agents that have tenacity and grit and stay with it over the long haul. Again, we see the word grit. This is very important with lead generation. It takes time, it takes persistence and tenacity. We could wrap it up in one word. You have to have grit to convert leads. Generating buyer leads via social media can be very effective. We think that trend will continue into the future. The problem is, unless you're a marketing or social media expert, you should hire a service or consultant to do it for you. The reason being, to be effective, you've got to post on social media sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. And it's very difficult for a busy agent to maintain that consistency, but that is what it takes to be effective. If you're interested in pursuing this new method, please email us for current recommendations, as the quality of these services and consultants varies and changes over time. You can generate buyer leads from your website. This is typically done by incorporating IDX into your website that allows prospective buyers to search properties in your geographic area. IDX stands for Internet Data Exchange and can be plugged into any agent website using the IDX vendors that your MLS provides. The challenge, though, is driving qualified traffic to your site, like Google AdWords and others. They cost money, and it takes time and expertise to do that correctly. But the real value of your website is not really generating leads, it's legitimizing you. It's basically an electronic resume that people need to see to make sure you're for real. And that's a real value. That's why I recommend all agents have a professional website. And we'll give you some opportunities and sources at the end. So let's drill down into some dialogues for converting internet buyer leads. Here's some exact dialogue. And as you study it, you should now recognize that at the core of this response is a feature, benefit, and tie down in your dialogue. I suggest you use this dialogue just as written if you're getting internet buyer leads coming to you. Remember, you got to call them back within 5 minutes. Here's some additional dialogue and questions so you can qualify this buyer lead right on the first phone call. Take a look at it and study it. Use it in your phone calls responding to buyer leads. Remember, at the end of the call, you need to obtain their name or confirm it, cell number, and their email address. And then when you're done with that phone call, you should text them your video introduction to start moving the contact to more of a warm relationship. The video introduction is a great technique, rarely used, and can really cement your chances of getting that buyer meeting set up at Starbucks or wherever. So I threw you a curveball. You need to make a video of yourself, but it's really not that hard. It should be 20 seconds or less. You should state your feature benefit tie down, which is the value proposition for them working with you as opposed to your competition. You should store that video on your cell phone and be able to text it right after your initial phone call with a buyer or seller. As we saw in the Buyer Whisperer training, the buyer protocol is the same: phone, finance, and meeting. So you're going to go through a series of phone calls with the buyer, get them pre-qualified, and then set up a meeting so you can go over your system of finding them their dream home. Let's move on to seller leads. I highly recommend you invest in seller leads before you invest in buyer leads. Why? It's obvious. You want listings. The best buyer leads come from your own listings. So if you're going to invest money, let's go after seller leads first. But Before we talk about using third-party vendors to buy seller leads directly as they troll the internet, you can generate your own seller leads with direct mail. The only direct mail piece I have advocated is the buyer letter. What is the buyer letter? The buyer letter is using direct mail to inform homeowners in a specific area that you might have a buyer for their home. But there are nuances that you need to understand. But done correctly and with consistency, these letters have a long shelf life. What I mean by shelf life is you may send out 500 buyer letters to your farm today, introducing 2 new buyers that are looking for their property. You may get a very low response, maybe 5%, which in direct mail is high, by the way. But the other 95% that did nothing in terms of response, some of them will keep that letter and call you 6 months, 1 year. I've even seen 2 years later to have you come over and give them a listing presentation because they're ready to move. That's what we call a long shelf life. This is a great investment in your marketing campaign to become a listing agent in your specific farm. Let me walk you through the steps of the buyer letter so you get the big picture. Clearly, number 1, it's a seller lead technique. Number 2, you're going to buy low-cost buyer leads for your farm. 3, once you have that, you're going to obtain ownership data from the title company, compose your buyer letter in Microsoft Word or the Apple equivalent. You're going to be specific about the buyers in the content of your letter. You're going to merge your letter with the ownership data, print them as original personalized letters in color, deliver them by door knocking, which is my first choice, my first recommendation, or mail it to them using direct mail. It should look like a wedding invitation coming in the mail, not some computerized junk mail. Number 10, you need to show up. With every response, you want to appointment set and go see them no matter what they say, so you can start that relationship. In that preview meeting, that first meeting, you want to bring your pre-list and your CMA. Number 12, in your dialogue, your conversation, you want to attempt to segue to a listing presentation right there and then. And 13, ultimately list the property. This may take, I've seen agents do this in one setting. With that first meeting, they walk out with a signed listing agreement. It may take several months or longer through several meetings to get the listing. Know this, the listing is worth your time and effort. Here is an example of an actual buyer letter. You'll notice in the first paragraph, we're talking about a couple, where they're from. They have 2 small children. Lisa and Paul are dentists, etc. So we want to be specific about your buyers. Once you start finding buyers for a target market, it gives you fuel for the buyer letter. You're merging key data from the title company into your letter, their address, the number of bedrooms, number of square feet, etc. So your letter identifies specific buyers. It identifies their specific home with detail and has a risk reversal offer in it as well. And you're looking for a response to this letter via email or phone call. Keep in mind, some of the responses to a buyer letter might be a correction. What I mean by that is we've seen calls come in to say, Scott, I got your letter and I don't know where you're getting your information, but my home is 3,500 square feet, not 3,200 square feet. Know that the title information is sometimes wrong, but the fact that they called you is a victory. You've started the relationship, even if it's just a correction. Some of these sellers, homeowners, may say, I'm not interested in selling, but if you've got a buyer, bring them over. I don't want to list my property, but if you have a specific buyer, I'll take a look at them. So some of these responses may not seem like warm leads. That's because they don't know you. Any response to these letters should make you go see them. You want to appointment set and stay on them, be persistent. You just want to say hello, drop by, meet them, whatever. So these are great leads not necessarily this month or next month, but over time. Show up. Why do I stress that? It's very easy, because of the variable response to these buyer letters, to assume it's not a really hot lead. And it may not be, doesn't matter. In every case, you show up. You go to the property with a CMA or just to meet them, whatever it takes. And here's some dialogue to use on the phone to do that. While I work with many buyers, it's in your best interest to create competition in an open market. Does that make sense? We should get it listed immediately. Now, I would use that dialogue in the meeting, not on the phone, if they're talking about the concept of just relying on your one buyer or two buyers in your buyer letter as opposed to getting it listed. You want to move them from just dealing with your one buyer to including that one buyer in competition once you put your home on the market. So your objective is to get this house listed. And here's a list of what you should bring to every preview or home seller meeting. Predictive analytics is used in Fortune 500 marketing. It's rarely used in real estate, but that's changing. The definition is an area of data mining that deals with extracting information from data and using it to predict trends and behavior patterns. What we want to know is who is likely to list their home. So the way this works is our predictive analytic vendor will take, let's say for example, 2,000 homeowners in your farm and narrow that down to the 400 most likely candidates to list their home in the next 12 months. So instead of spending your resources and time on 2,000, you can spend it on the 400. That's very valuable information for a marketer. How this is done is they take 100 to 150 data points and put them in a computer to come up with this predictive behavior. Delinquents, divorces, migration patterns, credit worthiness, mortgage information, divorce information, on and on and on. So they put that into a computer and use some data mining experts to come up with predictive analytics. So think about this. If you could focus your marketing efforts on homeowners that are twice as likely to list, how valuable can that be to you? There are 3 or 4 companies really leading the pack in predictive analytics in real estate. Please email us for the latest recommendation. Another way to generate seller leads is create home evaluation ads in social media. You can do this yourself, but it really takes some technical expertise and marketing expertise. But there are social media marketing experts that do this for real estate agents. Please email us for the latest recommendation. But let's talk about how to convert them. Converting seller leads that are based on the internet require relentless pursuit. As we've seen earlier, the gestation period for a home seller lead can be up to 2 years, so you have to stick with it. Your mindset should be stay on the seller until they tell you or go away or list the property. You should plan on calling the seller 6 times within the first 48 hours and keep calling them daily after that until you get them on the phone, because personal contact is key. Here's your phone dialogue if you reach the seller on the first call. In other words, you've got an internet seller lead, you immediately pick up the phone and call the seller and they answer the phone. Here's your dialogue. In that initial phone call with your seller, ask them about the improvements in the condition of their home. Explain to them that you need to see the home in person to produce an accurate valuation. you want to press for an appointment. This strategy will help you with your objective, which is to set the appointment so you can meet the homeowner in person. So what do you say if the homeowner says what they typically say, which is, "I'm not ready to sell yet"? Here's your dialogue for that. Now you're well armed for that objection. Many times, you will not be able to reach the seller on that initial phone call, but considering you're calling them 6 times in the first 48 hours, you've got a good shot at reaching them this evening or tomorrow evening. And here's what you say. So out of your 6 calls, you're going to leave voicemail on call number 1, 4, and 6. Call number 1 and 4 are the same voicemail. Call number 6 is a bit different. One of the great things of seller internet leads is you're going to have their email address. So after call number 6 and you haven't reached them, go ahead and email them your PR or Cloud CMA, whichever you use. And then you're going to call them back after you send that email. And if you reach them, here's the dialogue. And if you don't, leave a voicemail. So now you're armed with a complete set of dialogues for your seller internet leads. RPR stands for Realtors Property Resource. This is typically a component of your MLS that's free to do a computerized CMA. You can also use a paid service called Cloud CMA, and we could send you a link for Cloud CMA that might be able to get you a discount, so let us know if you want to use that one. I recommend every real estate agent have a personal website with your own domain. Why do you need one? Most agents will think they need it for lead generation. While that's possible with a budget and some expertise, the main reason you need a website, as I've mentioned previously, is to make an electronic resume for yourself online that your prospects will land on when they search your name. The website should add credibility to you. Typically, there are 3 budgets: a very low-cost version, a middle version, and then a custom website. You should consider having IDX as part of your website. Email us for sources on doing a website for you or just getting a reasonably priced but professionally made real estate agent website. You can expect to spend about $50 a month to $75 a month, which includes hosting and all the bells and whistles. IDX allows prospects to search active listings and generate leads for you on your website. We will refer the best vendor to you. These vendors have to be approved by your MLSs so we can connect you with a source that is professional, reasonably priced, and authorized by your MLS. Please email us for more information. So here's your action list for this week. Only consider buying leads once you have nurtured your existing network thoroughly and consistently. You want to maximize your efforts, taking care of your existing relationships first, with calls, notes, drop-bys to generate referrals. You want to launch a real estate agent website even before you start buying leads. Email us for details. And then when you're ready for lead generation outside your network, we will help you choose a predictive analytic vendor to go after seller leads. Next week is operations. We're going to talk about sources from over 50 categories of products and services that you need to run your business efficiently. See you then.